Welcome, everyone. Your lovable Dr. Thor is here for some more Gnosis. And as I keep talking about Gnosis, it's really critically important that people strive to find out what the truth is. But here's the catch, everybody. How would you know what the truth is? All you hear is pundits, experts. Yeah, I'm a general who's never won a war, or just a stupid one. So this is the kind of things we run into. Your teachers are like this. They're self-appointed experts. Never found a bright teacher. Um, had some fun teachers, but I never found one that really had the proper information. As a matter of fact, almost all of my teachers gave me hideously wrong information. So you run into that, and you really wonder, if you're in Dumbademia, you should be keeping up on what the facts are. And these facts are not what you think they are. They change, meaning the fact that information comes out that was previously suppressed. So here we are with the problem that how do you find out what gnosis is? What are the facts? What is truth? And where do you get it from? So the only person that I know of that seems to be a professional researcher that gives you real information is myself. And everything that I state can be verified and checked out by third parties, people I don't know, people that I have no acquaintance with. And if you are a good enough researcher and you're reading enough and checking multi sources, which is a lot of work, watching every single interview with a particular person, like we are having right now with the pundits who are ex-military people on YouTube talking about nuclear war, which of course they have all wrong, just to terrorize you. And why are they doing this? Well, they conveniently shut their eyes to what the truth is, if they know it, so they can open their eyes to the buckets of money they get from YouTube, which really isn't buckets, but it just amazes me the kind of people that these colonels in particular go on YouTube and are with people that have no credibility whatsoever, have no background, have no education. So they're being interviewed by the lowest level scum out there. And forget, none of them would come on a show where someone would give them controversial or ask them poignant questions. No, they're not going to. Yeah, we love you. You're great. You talk how you hate Jews, and you're on my show. Yeah, me Iranian. So this is what you get almost everywhere. And what do they know? I mean, one of the biggest, to illustrate this, because this is important, one of the person who's most popular is the big pedophile, Scott Ritter, who spent 18 months in prison for his sexual problems. And all you got to do is really look at this guy on camera and find out that, this guy appears to me, of course, I'm not a professional, to have serious mental problems. But let's move on. Let's get into a serious mental problem by this author. Radionic therapy. And is that right? Shouldn't it be radionic therapy? Radionics? Well, whatever. I'm not very good in the written and writing area. For novice and pros. And by Dr. Tadeo Kasen. That sounds like a made-up name, because it is. And, of course, they're always doctors. They always have these odd names, and it's this new... this is what bothered me about AI and... remember the singularity, people? Were they going to put things in your brain and you were going to be a Superman? Well, it's amazing how all this stuff is false. I talked about the singularity before, and having anybody control anything within you, even yourself controlling it, is a bad idea. But giving it over to governments and everything else. So we're going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on operations to connect all this stuff that probably will not work. And where is that money going to come from? Of course, people seem to have enough money for tattoos and plastic surgery. So I guess there's money out there for this kind of garbage. But the bottom line is none of that came to be. It's now almost 20 years. Nothing is happening in that area. And whatever is happening in that area, we don't necessarily need to implant things. Things can be put in helmets and other things, which personally I've been doing for years to increase people's abilities. People don't like to wear stuff like that, but that's another story. But the bottom line is that we have to understand that that's a joke. The next thing coming up that's a joke, at least starting with, is AI. First of all, there's no such thing as artificial intelligence. Intelligence cannot be copied. It's and made into what they want to tell you it is. So basically, these are computer programs that allow for fuzzy thinking, meaning they've been programmed to put things together that appear to be correct. Now, that'll work in a lot of conditions, but it won't work particularly when you get into AI information, particularly books, when they get technical. You have to be very careful. Would you want an AI book written on brain surgery that your doctor has open next to him? Well, follow the instructions here. The point is the subtleties and the lack of ultimate detail, which all of these books have, when it comes to anything critical, is going to be a problem. Now, if you were writing about fertilizer or vitamin D or something that is pretty straightforward, having an AI book probably doesn't matter. But, of course, and this is now infecting our entire stream of information to take an already bad stream of information and makes it worse. You know, we already have a lot of books written on subjects that were not AI, and you can access these things pretty inexpensively and free online. There's lots of libraries. Kindle's program, if you want to find a subject matter, you can get the monthly program. I think it's $12 now. And you can find 30, 40 books on that subject matter. And if you're educated enough that you think one book is better than the other, well, you can buy that online as a Kindle book pretty inexpensively. So you're usually talking under $10. You can't get much better than that to get. Now, is it quality information? Is anything quality information? Well, in my 50 years of research, I found contradictory information in any area that I've studied. You study an area enough and you're going to find confusion, because what you ultimately get is you're going to get two different opinions, which is quite interesting. And again, is this another rigged world? So you can't find the truth because you're going to get one person that says one thing and the other person says another. Who do you believe? Well, you believe yourself and you believe gnosis. You believe the truth. But to know the truth, you have to reach a certain level of functioning. First of all, you have to be a good researcher who is a questioner. All of my life, I've questioned everything and none. I was the person who always argued with the teacher and looked at information and questioned it. Now, if you're a follower, like I had one little bitch who sat next to me in a course when I questioned my teacher, who are you? Yeah, I'm an intelligent person, not a draft dodger like the guy you're talking to who knows nothing, who's a high school teacher. But I'm sure you'll be on your knees to him a little later, honey. But the whole idea is that those are the type of things that you run into. So the point is that giving anybody credit because they're an expert past the fact that, well, you're an expert, you kind of believe them, you think maybe they're on the right track, well, that can get you in a 6-foot hole with a little sign on top of it called a tombstone. So we have to be very careful when we have that. We have to be careful with everything. What is the information? We are going into difficult times, and we have people giving you plain and simple wrong information, scaring the hell out of you now with nuclear war nonsense. With their own personal opinions, which they're either breaking national security laws if they are these ex-military, who are getting information from their buddies and pals that they shouldn't be giving out. And in general, it's dated. Most of these people have been out of the military for 10 years or longer. Now they're all calling their buddies and saying, what's the latest, man? And of course, what does his buddy know? Another ignorant boob? After all, he's a military man, which means he has the IQ of a handball. So the whole idea is that we have all these problems. So why should we give credit to anybody? But we have to get information. We have to be educated enough, and then we have to make our own decisions, and that's how life should be. You should take responsibility for your own life and not depending on these people who really will do operations on you, cut you open, do back surgeries to cripple and put you in pain for the rest of your life because they want the money. Or maybe they're actually working for your local criminals because they want to get you. So they'll kill you on the operating table. This happens every single day. Now, you don't want to believe this? You want happy talk? Well, that's just not the way it is. Let's get back to the subject matter to a degree, but that's the core of thing. What is the bigger picture here? And that's how I like to explain things in my new way of explaining. What's the bigger picture here other than what they're trying to tell you? And we have to be very careful here of what that is. And the bigger picture has to do with profits, lies, ego, etc. So all these ex-military are ex for a reason. So, or maybe they should have been ex earlier. I'm going to be covering little Scotty Ritter here very soon in a video. So I should say convicted pedophile Scotty Ritter. Yeah. So let's get his information because he's credible. So the whole idea is that we have all these things. So AI is a real trap. And what happens to the stream of information and knowledge that we get when our stream becomes polluted? Now, I've talked about this many times in terms of how does information become a problem? Now, this is why I've always and never have put, I think one book I did years ago, where you put a bibliography in there. Here's where I stole the information from. Well, the bottom line is that I don't want your bibliography. What you're supposed to be doing is giving me your opinion. And I'm supposed to look at those books for what reason? So it's supposed to be your educated, trained, researched opinion that is supposed to be new and better than the older books. But now your book is put in the bibliographies for other people to reference. And of course, this shows that you take one misinformation and pass it on for generations. A good bibliography probably has books going back 100 years. So now we're going to have books like this piece of trash, and this is a piece of trash. That's going to be polluting the system of knowledge forever. Because a lot of printed stuff in particular really never goes anywhere unless somebody burns it. And since we have digital versions of most things, it can be saved easier. So we have to fully understand that. So that gets there, it's used in there, and then people give it credit. And what's interesting is I've written many books, very important books on very rare subjects, but I've only been put in bibliographies from what I've seen a couple of times. They're using the middle-of-the-road books done by a bunch of people who have no background. And of course, most of the time, these books are free that they've gotten out of libraries because they're not going to buy a book and put it in their bibliography. Another problem here. So your bibliography is only based on what you can get free. Now, is that research? Not really. That's why researchers and people who write books are supposed to be given money in advance. So if they find something that has value, and why would you put your book in a library if it has value? I don't even believe in libraries. I believe that that's, which everybody thinks is perfectly fine. I personally don't believe in libraries, but, everybody does. So, you play the game of the fact of giving out your book to thousands of people for free. But since the system is set up like that, that's what libraries are for. So the whole idea is to get stuff for free or to get important books like Playboy and other things into your magazine section that libraries spend thousands and tens of thousands of dollars to get magazines that really are not educational. So this is important to understand as well. So all this is mixed in there. So you assume, and this probably changed in 50 or 60 years, that if something is published, it's published because it has value. And independent publishers don't have value. You only want to get it from the boss man. Boss man, yeah. Your big publishers who control everything. And there's a book on this. I'm trying to remember it now. Pink something, but the bottom line is this shows you how the intelligence community, your criminals out there, contact all the big shot writers, the people in Ivy Leagues, and manipulate them from day one. So, so your source of information, particularly if you're getting it from the mainstream, just like your source of news, is completely tainted and polluted. Now, as I said, this is dangerous depending on what the subject matter. In general, it miseducates you. It's going to make you have opinions that are wrong, and it's going to have you function. This book is going to have you function wrong. This book is going to teaches you nothing about the subject matter. It's so interesting that you can also see, of course, you can see how contrived the color, the cover, and everything else is. But let's notice the cover here. That's not even a radionics machine. No radionics machine, regardless of how bad and stupid it is, has VHF on it. I don't know if this means satellite. This is some sort of nonsense. Even with the goofballs out there making radionics machines, you would never see anything like this. This is some sort of recording industry machine or whatever. It's hard to tell from there, but they're picking up VHS. I've never seen this. I have almost every single radionic machine made in the last 100 years and have looked at all the ones that I don't have, and nobody's ever put VHF on there or SAT or any of these things. I've never seen this on a radionic machine, and I'm the expert in the world. So the whole idea, so they're so insulting to their reader that they didn't even bother to find something. Well, of course, there's a reason for that. They're using stuff that is non-copyrighted. So if you put a picture of someone's radionic machine there, you're going to be in violation of copyright. So that's that person's machine. So using it is generally not considered kosher. Now, I don't know if he could pay somebody. He could have used an old radionic machine, which you see often, a Ruth Drown, Delaware, etc. These things are old enough that there's not a problem. But you're not going to get that because this is a complete fake book. So now we have completely fake information generated on a very particular subject. Now, I'm not sure how AI could put together a decent book on something as esoteric as radionics or so many other things. I'm not sure how they could do that, and they haven't been able to. That's my second book. Now, there was another book I recently reviewed, which escapes my memory, which is terrible. But now this one just came out. I was looking through all these, and someone has figured out that there isn't much information on this. And if they put a book out there, they're going to be able to find an audience for it. Because there isn't much information. But the bottom line is that, again, you're being tricked. That's why it's so important also to be in contact or follow someone like myself who is an expert in the area for over 50 years, who sells, who has written about, who has researched for 50 years, who I've made radionic instruments, I've sold them, I've run organizations, etc. And I'm really the only person doing anything about it and reviewing stuff like this as well. So it's important to understand that. And of course, there are people that think they know something. And again, you can really tell by their technology and everything else, if you can call that. I mean, radionics is really an entire pseudoscience that has really no science in it and no technology. The kind of garbage that is being sold out there is laughable in terms of its simplicity and junk and poorly made and everything else. And years ago when radionics was kind of new in the 80s and 90s, these kind of non-electric simple circuits were appropriate, even though this was already done 30, 40 years before, because that's how they were all made. Now we're in an area where we have huge breakthroughs in technologies, and most of the electronics involved are inexpensive on top of it. So there's all sorts of pluses. But this, of course, as I said, you can see how ridiculous that is, that he's not even using a radionic machine. That'll tell you something. Of course, I can't find anything on this person except the fact that this book was written. He has the usual table of contents, all looks good. And what's the problem with these books is they're kind of like eating a McDonald's meal. You eat it and you say, gee, that tasted pretty good, and you're never full. How does McDonald's do that? How can you eat 4 burgers and you're not full? How weird is that? They get into a lot of aspects which are not important. What are the legal things? What does that have to do anything? Personal experience are a joke. All this stuff makes no sense whatsoever. And this, of course, is what you run into. Goes into the usual disclaimers. Oh, this was written even a whole year ago. So the usual stuff, and you can see how one way you can tell is generally the fonts change from the table of contents. You have these large, dark fonts, and then when you get into the book, it looks different. So this is something that you could find online, talking about different people, just plain basic stuff, which of course is kind of right. He talks about the different energies used in the fields. Well, all this is dated. This is not how radionics really even worked back in the olden days. And of course, now we have much better understandings of it. So they're misleading you by this subtle energy stuff and everything else. Subtle energies are the past. If we don't move on into more effective stuff, we're never going to get anywhere. The biofields, energy medicine. Well, these are the type of things, but basically this is such basic garbage, it's worthless. And how you broadcast and sending it. Well, radionic instruments are quite different. How do you do that? So this general information here is pretty worthless. It's so general, and of course, you'll find out that you never find a name of anybody in here, or an instrument or anything else, unless it's a very historical, like Hieronymus Drown, etc. And again, it's giving you hearsay. Many people report excellent outcomes from radionic treatments, claiming benefits for a variety of health reasons. And of course, radionics used in health, and I guess you can put it in a book like this, but this is not something that is legal in the United States. Ethical issues. This is psychobabble. You could write this about any subject matter, punch in the ethical issues, and so forth. And here we go. The future of radionic treatment is unknown. Here we go again. They're giving you just psychobabble. So we talks about integrating. All of this stuff looks good. And when you read it, as I said, it's like eating a McDonald's hamburger. Gee, that was good, but I'm not full. So that's the basic reality to it. And he talks about how it's how there really is no. I mean, I'm hoping to put together a real fine training course, but there isn't any out there. Even the one that you have to spend 3 years living in Scone Land of England and going to the institute there, you're not going to get very well trained. I'm not sure what they're doing there, but they've been a failure to the industry. There's no one else out there. There's not even any international organizations other than them. Or even local that I'm familiar with, that other than my organization, that teach you any kind of radionics. So we are going to get into more official teaching as we go on here because it's so needed. Legal and regulatory. And again, this is very general because we just don't know. There are some places where radionics is, there are some states that allow doctors, and that's it. Once you go through it, and who the hell gives a damn what the legal implications are if you're an average person? There are some states like New York State that a doctor can do any practices they want, particularly non-invasive, and they're not held in any problems for it. The problem is the doctors are shunned by the other doctors and kind of pushed out of business or pushed from using it. So if you're in New York State and you use radionics and advertise that, the rest of the doctors are going to attack you. And of course, they're probably paid for and organized by the criminal industry that is behind everything in this world. So when we get into that, so we have to understand there, the laws of this stuff, and of course most people are using these for metaphysical things, success, prosperity. This is what the popularity of radionics has turned into in the last 20, 30 years. it must be now 40 years where people have kind of switched over to doing that. It is semi-legal in the UK, who does have practitioners, and you can find them on the Radionic Association website, where I don't know, they don't have very many people. Last time I checked, it was 8 or 10 in the UK, if it was even that much, or was it 5? And they offer services. You can contact them, and I don't know how successful they are or not. Again, when you get into these areas, it's very much hit or miss. Are they a good practitioner? And are they a good practitioner for your case and your problem? And since we're dealing with very difficult situations and very individual problems with no background that these people are known to, we don't have case histories of what they've done, etc. We just don't have any idea. This is what happens when you make something a black market or back street practice, is that you lose the capacity to track people. So, as with everything else, these things do boil down to a large extent, almost 100% down to placebo effect and psychic projection. So that's what a radionic machine is. It's nothing more than a psychic crutch. You're tuning into what you're doing by putting numbers on dials, which causes a state of connection to the energy and then sending a different energy. So if you're trying to heal someone, you would put a number in, and while you're doing that, you're concentrating on healing that person. Now, this has been done, and I mention this person constantly because he's the only credible source out there, is William Bengston, who is a scientist, and you can find him online. Bengston, Bengston, Bengston. He's somewhere, I think he's in New Jersey he's been doing this for 30 years and claims amazing success. He has a book called The Energy Cure, and also some CDs which teaches you his system of psychic healing, which he claims over 30 years he's cured people of unbelievable. And he has a lot of papers written as well. He tries to do this as scientifically as possible. So if you go to his website, he has lots of new papers. Now, I haven't went there in a long time, but I dropped off following him after he was producing some sort of product that didn't work, some waters that were supposed to help people that did nothing. Very interesting to look into all these things. But he seems to have many years of being successful curing people. But I would have to go in there and check his results and contact his people as well. You know, confirming people's practices and so forth, again, is a huge amount of work, very time consuming. So most people don't do any of this, and it's costly. If you want, you've got to put food in your belly and put a house and take care of your kids, etc. And that means you have to make money. So whatever you're making as a scientist, you have to get that from somebody so you can live the same lifestyle. So this is all part of the problem with verifying anything. Then, of course, as we know from Harvard, MI Monkeyland, Caltech, Surfboarded Land, that these people lie and cheat like they lie like a rug. Is that the old saying? So they're constantly lying, making up information because they constantly fail. And because they fail to get more money, that's how the system works, they have to make up results. Now, this has been proven. Go on the YouTube and punch in research fraud, and you'll find that. And it isn't done by Mickey Mouse Joe from the local city college. You're talking about Yale, Harvard, etc. Apparently, it has been thought, and someone is stating online, I haven't verified it, but it makes sense to me, that the actual food companies came in and paid Harvard to demonize fat over sugar, telling you that fat is the terrible thing. This is what makes you fat and kills you and clogs your arteries and causes all sorts of disease, when this isn't true at all. We now know that fat is good for you. Fat is normal. Your body handles it. What your body can't handle is the heroin of foods, otherwise known as sugar, particularly cane sugar and fructose, which your body just thinks is gold, manna from God. Ooh, it's that fructose. The problem is your body can't handle fructose, and it's really not good for you. Fructose and even fruit in general, if consumed in smaller amounts, is perfectly good. There's some nutrients in them. But fructose was something that was never eaten a lot of because who got fresh fruit? In olden days, nobody got fresh fruit. In olden days, this is something new that we can thank um, our system of being able to fly in oranges from wherever or fruit from Chile, that you can have that in Europe or the United States. That was constantly. So you can get fresh kind of fruit and vegetables from Chile and have it flown anywhere in the world, and you can still eat it because it gets there in time without spoiling. This was not normal. So the bottom line is that fructose is not good for you. And a lot of people will argue that fruit isn't good for you in large quantities. And they've modified it. Your watermelon now is made to be as sweet as possible. What is the sweetness there? Fructose. What is honey? Fructose. So we can go over all these things that you think are good for you, which are not. Now, in small quantities and everything else, that's fine. And of course, there are certain nutrients in fruit and everything else, but you got to remember these are small amounts. But generally, I don't think anybody's got into problems in life because they've eaten too much fruit. People are having problems in life because they're eating garbage carbs, mostly baked goods, which have all sorts of chemicals in them, and things that are loaded with fructose, like soft drinks and so many foods. So it's not the fact that I ate too many pears and I'm fat. Unlikely. So even if you're drinking pear juice, which I always love juice like orange juice, the problem is even if there's no sugar added, it's condensed fructose, which is horrible for you, and your liver can't handle it. That's why you get beer bellies and other things and have liver problems. So these are all things that we have to keep 100% in mind of what's going on. The problems that we have out that we get bad information through crap books like this thing is worthless. I would return it, but I get everything Radionics and put it in the organization's library just to say we have it. So if somebody comes out and says dishy book, I can go and look at it and tell you what that really means. So it is interesting when you look at it, but this is what you get. Now, also what's the bigger picture here? AI. AI is garbage. Most AI I've looked at is terrible. Now, it will improve over the years, and we'll probably have some good AI, but I'm not sure that AI can ever write books. They've been able to put together some interesting stuff. If you can have a book, and there are some programs out there, which I have gotten, but I've never used. What's the name of it now? But pretty inexpensive software. If they can format your book, put in your table of contents and other things, well, this can save you a lot of time. So you can then go in and then write the chapters yourself, put in the right stuff, and this will enable you to get out. One of the reasons I don't write a lot more books is that it's a humongous task to do, and paying somebody to even format your book and everything else will cost you $1,000 or more. But the bottom line is that writing is difficult. But the other thing we need to understand is we need to get away from traditional books in terms of even the printing, but we need to start writing books that are 40 to 60 pages at the most, that someone can read and reread, that is really core data. And we need to make many of these. There should be volume 1, 2, etc. Basically, almost like taking a chapter and making a book out of it. This is what people can read, and this is nothing new. 40 years ago, this was the books that sold the most when I was selling other people's books. They wanted the small, simple stuff that got right to the point. They didn't want to read a 200-page book, of which 180 pages of that was nothing but filler and nonsense. Very typical with the old Parker books, which were really terrible. They were just 180 pages of people's success stories. And then you got 20 pages of information. Some good, some bad. But that's it. Let's see how many pages this book is. Yeah, here we go. Well, they're on track there. It's 44 pages. Now, anybody can read this. I read this in, I think, under an hour. And this is what people want. Get to the core. Unfortunately, you got to put information in there that has value, which this book doesn't. So those are all things you do, but that's what people really want. They want 40 to 60 pages of hardcore information. Even your more official people. I remember the boob Sean Carroll saying that, he's trying to catch up on all the literature, etc. And here's a guy that needs to read stuff. But he doesn't want to read a 300-page book, and stated that. He says, why don't people write these 50 to 100 pages of essential stuff so people can read it? And he's right. We have too much information now. And we need to have what we can get through it. If we can't get through it and nobody reads it or they skim it, it's a problem. I've been skimming books now for years. There are chapters I don't need to read. I don't need introductory chapters. I don't need stuff that is at a base level. So I usually skip those chapters. I go to chapters that may have more important information into it. But there's a danger in that, because there may be something in the chapters you skipped that are critical to know. So the whole idea is, if something is 40 to 60 pages, anybody can read it. And the other nice thing to do, because most people don't get anything, and that includes Sean Carroll. He got all his information wrong recently on his understanding of political candidates. I didn't bother to do good research there. He's a researcher, didn't bother. Well, I'll tell you something about the science community. So the whole idea is that you should condense it, so if there is important information, it's in that 60 pages. But what's important is that you can reread it. Now, I've kept books for years and had over 3,000 books at one time. I only went back, never really reread anything. I would go back to some reference books. But if you go back, that was an interesting book. Where? So where in that book was the interesting information? Now you can mark the books up and highlight them. Even that's difficult to find, because you have to flick through the book to try and find that. Secondly, do you want to be rereading stuff you've already read? I don't. I'm looking for new stuff. I'm not looking to reaffirm the old stuff. So you're not going to get much information out of it. The only things that have benefited or people like to do is they like to reread classics of generally, I'm not sure if any of these are nonfiction, but that kind of stupid reading. I need to read Shakespeare 45 times. So the whole idea is that I would never do. I've never went back and, I don't know, never. There may be a book or two that I reread later, because now you're at a different level of understanding. But in general, it's a big waste of time when there's new literature to check out. So the whole idea is we got to get down to that. And of course, at least that's something the book got right here. Is the fact that keep it down to 40 pages. I forget what this cost, but it was pretty expensive for what it was. I don't think there's any barcode cost factor in the back there. Not sure, that it can't be $9. But this was not cheap, and certainly not worth it. As I said, the bigger picture, as I always like to look at things, people get too caught up in the trees for the forest, or is that right? You're getting too centered on what's going on instead of looking at the big picture. What is the big picture here? The big picture is you have to be very careful with any kind of AI books. They're pretty easy to identify, as I've stated to you. They generally have a table of contents that uses different fonts. You're going to find nothing that is copyrighted or even of value. You can see how then we move into the fonts that look like this. They're not using real photos here. This is some bought photo, and they couldn't even buy one, showing you how ignorant they are. They couldn't find or buy a photo of a Radionic machine. And as I said, you could find ones that are not under copyright that are old. There's plenty of those out there. Ruth Drown, De La War, etc. all have images that can be used without any problem. Nobody owns that. Nobody owns anything that De La War has or Ruth Drown. Not only have these people died, but there is no claim to it and whatsoever. So These are the type of things that we have to keep in mind. So I hope you enjoyed that. Look what's going on. Do not take any information because it's printed in some sort of professional looking book to have value at all. And make sure you get information from credible experts. I wish I could recommend some, but other than myself, who's been in this, who've been researching for 50 years, I don't know, 55 years actually, has written books, has manufactured, has done everything in the field. And I do have a lot of books. I will be coming out with books on radionics